He died a year ago, everyone said. Then there he was, starving at the station. Grandma, my blood went cold. What had his stepmother done? March 4th, 6:15 a.m. The fog still blanketed Portland Station in Oregon as I made my way to volunteer at the library. I departed my house a bit sooner than normal because a fresh batch of children's books needed sorting. The chilly air of the morning nipped at my face. As I walked to the station, I thought about the advice my husband always offered: trust your gut. I recalled my husband's past career, remembering his words when he was still a police officer. I was getting a bad vibe that morning. The sounds of the birds, usually prominent in the mornings, were unusually muted. I saw an odd shadow as I neared the platform. There shouldn't have been any crowds at that hour. Near the platform's edge, a small figure was hunched over, completely still. That's really odd. I stopped moving without really thinking. I've taught for over 3 decades, and my intuition for a child in trouble is usually spot on. He was a boy dressed in a grimy gray hoodie. He looked so frail it made me wince. Maybe he was around 10 years old. His worn jeans were flapping in the cold March breeze. His socks had big holes and his shoes were falling apart. My heart started pounding faster as I got closer. It was a shape I knew well, but it was out of the question. This was impossible because the boy standing before me had been officially deceased for a year. It was my grandson. Grandma, I'm starving. I felt my body go rigid at the sound of that thin voice. I knew it immediately. There was a little stutter, but the voice was familiar and tender. I recalled how often that small voice had pleaded with me, "Grandma, please read this book to me." Slowly, the boy lifted his face. His skin was very white. Beneath his deeply set eyes, it was obvious he was worn out. His cheeks were sunken and his lips were chapped and cracked. Then the undeniable proof, a tiny scar from surgery positioned just behind his left ear. It brought back memories of when he'd had ear surgery when he was 3. I had put cream on that scar countless times. Kaizen. Is that really you, Kaizen? My voice was unsteady. The grandson that everyone said was gone was really here, standing right in front of me. My hands were trembling so hard and even my legs felt wobbly. But I had to remain calm right now. He needed to be taken somewhere safe. All these memories flooded my mind. 3 years ago, my son Tim and Sarah, his wife at the time, divorced. Due to what could be termed neglect, the court gave Tim custody of Kaizen. I reduced my volunteer work at the library to help with taking care of him. I did morning drop-offs and pickups, made his lunches, and helped him with his homework. But it wasn't a hardship at all. Kaizen adored books. Whenever I read to him, he would lean forward, resting on my lap, completely focused on the words. He especially loved dinosaur books. As I began to explain, "You see the Tyrannosaurus," he would listen with such bright, excited eyes. 2 years ago, Tim met Amy, a social worker. She had an 8-year-old son named Aiden. She seemed to appear like a savior, this smart and kind woman named Amy. Following our wedding, she embraced the image of the ideal homemaker, and both my son and I were genuinely moved by the care she gave us as a mother of 2 young children. However, reflecting on those times, certain clues emerged. Amy seemed excessively enthusiastic about photographing Kaizen. Specifically, that particular day at the Columbia River camping spot, she continuously snapped photos of Kaizen, almost compulsively. "It's for his development records," she explained. Her expression seemed distant, almost blank. That evening, Kaizen vanished, claiming he needed to go to the restroom. Then it began to pour rain very hard. A frantic search ensued. 3 days subsequently, they declared him dead, even though they never found his body. Law enforcement categorized it as an accidental death. The conclusion they reached was that the river had carried him away. Nonetheless, my gut feeling told me otherwise. Amy's actions were also peculiar. She didn't display any signs of being upset. If anything, she appeared unnaturally composed. Without a moment's hesitation, I brought Kaizen back to my residence. With my hands shaking, I prepared a hot stew for him and put him in my deceased husband's worn-out pajamas. While assisting him with changing, I observed some dark marks on his back. Possibly evidence of mistreatment, I thought. Kaizen quietly ate the soup, putting the food in his mouth. The entire scene felt so unreal that I had to blink several times. Finally, I forced myself to become strong and got my phone. I pressed the numbers to reach my son. After 3 rings, Tim picked up. I could hear kids laughing cheerfully in the background. "Mom, why are you calling so early?" "Tim, listen," I said. "Kaizen is here. He's safe and sound at my house right now." On the other side of the call, my son sounded completely baffled. "What, Mom, what are you saying?" "He's right here building with Legos alongside Aiden." I felt a sudden wave of unease wash over me. There's Kaizen holding a spoon up for me. The Kaizen is currently playing at my son's residence, and Amy's oddly excessive picture-taking. Amy seemed so unnaturally composed. It all began to make sense. Amy's horrible secret was finally materializing. I spoke to my son, fighting to keep my voice from shaking. "Tim, please call the authorities, immediately. The Kaizen at your house isn't the real Kaizen." I'm starting to see exactly what Amy has done. The time until the police showed up felt like an incredibly long time. After finishing eating, Kaysen drifted off to sleep on my couch, completely drained. He looked so vulnerable while sleeping, like a baby, occasionally twitching a bit. Prior to calling the police, I decided I needed to speak with someone I could trust. I got in touch with Mike Wilson, my husband's previous work associate who now works as a private detective. He would definitely look at things level-headedly. "Mary, I'm on my way. Make sure nobody sees him until I get there." Mike's voice sounded his normal, steady self. About half an hour later, Mike reached my place. He examined the slumbering Kaizen and took pictures of the cuts and scrapes he had. He then softly woke Kaizen up and started to speak to him in a gentle tone. "Kaizen, there's nothing to be afraid of. Can you tell us what happened?" Initially, Kaizen didn't speak, appearing scared, but eventually he began to talk. His story disclosed something far more horrific than we could have anticipated. "That day, when I went to the bathroom, there was an unfamiliar man waiting for me. He said Mom sent him." Kaysen's statement made it clear I was the target of a kidnapping plot. The entire campsite seemed to have been arranged with incredible precision, and Amy was responsible. They forced me into a vehicle and drove me to a dilapidated structure. The windows were positioned high on the walls, preventing me from seeing the exterior. However, I did receive some reading material. My instructions were to learn. The windows were elevated, blocking my view. They were. My prison turned out to be a deserted suburban home. I was given the bare minimum of food and drink. Despite the lack of freedom, I received books, but I was completely prohibited from leaving the building. From time to time, Amy would show up to check on me. 3 days had passed since I last saw anyone. I was starving. I managed to pull off the weathered window boards and escape. Mike maintained his composure, jotting things down and occasionally nodding. His story is detailed enough for even a kid to grasp. He confided in me in a hushed tone. Just at that moment, the doorbell chimed. Looking through the peephole, I recognized 2 officers in uniform and a detective dressed in plain clothes. Mike welcomed them and gave them a quick explanation of the situation. The police immediately took action. One started documenting Kaizen's story, while another began taking mine. The detective in plain clothes was on the phone, requesting more assistance. "Mrs. Mary, we have dispatched a second team to your son's residence. We'll capture suspect Amy." Just as I felt a surge of optimism at hearing those words, my phone buzzed. It was Tim calling. It was about my mom. Amy had run off with Aiden right before the police showed up. A shiver ran down my back. This was the absolute worst-case scenario, but that was just the start. Mike's laptop unveiled some truly disturbing findings from his investigation. "Mary, I did some digging into Amy's past. It turns out she has a criminal history. 10 years back, it involved her former husband's kid. The article displayed on Mike's computer screen came from an Idaho paper published a decade ago, and it detailed the questionable passing of an 8-year-old with the mother proclaiming her innocence. The individual in the picture was clearly a younger Amy. Back then, she went by the name of Amy Clark. That was her surname before she got married," Mike kept explaining. "Her stepchild died in an accident. It was a drowning. The insurance company paid out the full amount. Following that incident, her husband also passed away in a puzzling accident. I almost fell out of my seat. She had already murdered another person's child and even offed her own parent. And now, the identical thing was happening to Kaizen." A young detective came over to talk to us. We reviewed the security camera recordings from the station. Before Kaizen showed up, a black SUV had been parked there. A grown man was behind the wheel, probably an accomplice. Revelation after revelation kept coming, and it was making my head spin, but I couldn't just ignore the situation. My phone started ringing once more. It was Tim. "Mom, we've tracked down Amy's family home. It's located 3 hours south of Portland. Her sister is likely living there now." "Tim, please don't go alone," I shouted, filled with a growing fear. I recognized that dangerous tone in my son's voice, the same fierce sense of justice his dad always had. "I know, I've already told the police. I'm about to give my official statement." His level-headed answer calmed me a little. Right then, Mike found some new information. "Mary, here's Amy's banking transaction history. There's been consistent monthly withdrawals over the last 12 months. He's the one I saw him on the screen, James Hunter. He's been in trouble with the law 3 times. He was locked up for things like kidnapping and getting money by force. I figured he had to have been the one who helped keep them locked up. As we kept looking, I started to get a handle on Amy's scheme. She got everything ready ahead of their wedding. She bought that old, run-down house. She found people to work with her. She even had the paperwork ready to make an insurance claim." The detective gave me a paper to look over. It said that Amy had filed an insurance claim just a week after it happened. Claims normally take forever to be processed when there isn't even a body. She'd put together really comprehensive documentation. It felt like exactly, she definitely knew what she was doing. Suddenly, the doorbell went again. Mike looked through the little hole in the door, then unlocked it fast. "You're Hunter, right?" he asked. "Just give up. We know where all your money is." I kind of held my breath. It was the guy who drove the black SUV, the one from the security camera, Amy's partner. The guy put his hands up, not fighting back at all. "I'll talk," he said, his voice worn out. "I'll tell you everything. That woman is out of her mind." At first, I thought it was just about cheating the insurance companies, but it wasn't. She's gathering up children. The silence in the room grew heavy when I heard that. "Aiden, too," I whispered. "Aiden isn't her real kid, either." Hunter slowly nodded. 3 years ago in winter, in Wyoming. Hunter's story showed us how much worse things were than we'd already thought. Amy had grabbed at least 5 kids over the last 10 years. My approach was quite intricate, consistently blending fraudulent insurance claims with death certificates. She always went after well-off single-parent households. She would present herself as a social worker, enter into a marriage, and then I observed the detective, a furrow in his brow as he recorded Hunter's statement. "The kids are isolated and subsequently placed with different families," Hunter elaborated. "Amy assists clientele, affluent couples who are battling infertility. They're impatient with the regular adoption process." Wait, I was momentarily baffled. Subsequently, Aiden, he was the offspring of a physician in Wyoming, Michael Brown, who vanished 3 years previously. Amy began raising him, calling him Aiden. Scenes flooded my consciousness. The fact that Aiden was left-handed. Kayson's repeated remarks about how strange that was. However, in the photographs, the child used his right hand. The police station, which had transformed into the investigation's nerve center, was receiving updated information constantly. "We've reviewed the surveillance camera recordings," the junior detective indicated toward a big screen. "The suspect, Amy, registered at a motel in southern Oregon 3 hours earlier. Aiden, or rather Michael, is with her. There are additional collaborators." An experienced detective unfolded a map. "Bank transfer records over the last 10 years reveal a minimum of 3 collaborating groups, creating phony birth certificates, setting up fabricated adoptions and money laundering operations." All at once, a wave of enthusiasm surged through headquarters. "The suspect's car has been sighted," the radio emitted static, traveling south on Highway 5. A cop recognized the vehicle because it was going too fast. The leader barked orders. "All teams create a boundary." The commander also told the officers not to escalate things. "There's a kid inside," he added. Tim and I were glued to the enormous screen in headquarters, watching helicopter video. Police cars chased Amy's white SUV as it swerved through the lanes of traffic. "Mom," Tim squeezed my hand. "I really thought I knew Amy, but I was wrong. She'd always seemed so sweet and kind." "Don't beat yourself up," I reassured myself, putting my hand on my son's shoulder. We'd all been tricked by her. Out of nowhere, the screen showed something awful. Amy's car stopped abruptly, pulling onto the shoulder of the road. The driver's door swung open and Amy leaped out. What looked like a pistol was in her hand. "Don't fire," the commander shouted into the radio. "The child is." Then something completely surprising happened. The child, who I thought was Aiden but turned out to be Michael, jumped out of the car and tackled Amy. "Stop it," I could hear the boy shout, thanks to the dash cam footage. "I don't want to lie anymore." The gun fell from Amy's hand. The special unit began advancing. The tactical team coordinated their movements. Amidst the commotion, I thought I saw a look of joy on Michael's face, as shown on the screen. Amy was actually laughing when they arrested her. "I was just trying to make them happy," she said, "saving them from sad homes." "Be quiet," I heard myself yelling, my voice louder than I intended. "You ruined those kids' lives, their parents' lives, and our lives." It was July of 2024. I sat in the waiting area at St. Luke's Hospital's child psychiatry department. I was sitting there anticipating Kayson's session to wrap up. He has counseling every week. About 4 months had flown by. "Grandma," Kayson approached me grinning. His posture seemed a bit less tense than usual. Today my son discussed dinosaurs. The doctor wasn't familiar with Pachycephalosaurus, so I explained it to her. I wanted so badly to embrace him. The counselor had advised me to respect the boundary where he feels comfortable emotionally. That's great news. I bet the doctor learned something. I gave him a soft smile. "Your dad is on his way to pick us up. He'll probably arrive momentarily." The trial concluded last month. Amy was given a 15-year sentence in prison. There are more trials coming up. Her entire criminal enterprise was taken down. Her partners in crime were caught one after the other. "What's the news about Aiden?" "Or I mean Michael," he questioned. "He's having a psychological evaluation today. We can go see him once that's done." Michael Brown has been reunited with his biological parents, but 3 years' worth of recollections aren't easily erased. He still answers to the name Aiden. His real parents decided not to pressure him, allowing him time to heal. The elevator doors opened and Tim showed up. "Sorry, I'm behind schedule." The meeting at work went on longer than planned. A change had come over my son. The hesitation he once held was gone, and he now looked like a capable father. The divorce proceedings were over, and he now shares custody of Kyson and Michael. "Dad, are we still going to the park today?" "Yep, and Michael will be there too." My mom just phoned. As we settled into the vehicle, I recalled our initial meeting with Michael at the animal sanctuary. "I apologize," he said, overcome with emotion. He explained that he was compelled to replace Kaysen, but in reality he'd always wanted to meet Kaysen. He continued, stating how isolated he'd felt all along. At his statement, Kaysen wordlessly wrapped his arms around Michael. It was a gesture of acceptance that spoke volumes. Although not connected by family ties, they had genuinely formed a brotherhood. When we reached the park, Michael and his parents were already there. "Kaysen, Michael." The kids dashed toward one another and gave each other high fives. It had become their special greeting. Two pairs of parents were observing them. We traded quiet smiles. Mary, Michael's mom, spoke to me. "Watching the kids happy gives me optimism." I confirmed with a nod. The emotional scars would not mend overnight. However, we had all the time in the world. As dusk began to fall at the park, the two boys started to play tag. Their laughter seemed to fade away into the heavens. I was shelving fresh picture books one spring afternoon in 2025 at the library, pondering the past year since that very day. Janet, my coworker, and Mary called out. There was another request for an interview. This time it was for a nationally broadcast documentary. I gave a subtle shake of my head. After everything that happened, our story had been repeatedly highlighted in the news as a caution regarding a new form of abduction, which was dubbed ghost children. It resulted in the identification of comparable situations. Human exploitation that was masked as adoption. Fabricated accidental deaths. Horrible outcomes stemming from warped affection. I won't be doing the interview. The kids deserve a regular childhood at this point. From the library's tall windows, I had a view of the playground at the school. Kyson and Michael often come here after classes are done for the day. They are both attending the same elementary school. Because of the principal's kindness, they were placed together in the same classroom. "Grandma," a familiar voice called out. I looked around and saw Kyson and Michael standing near me, both wearing their school uniforms. Michael's name tag was red-brown. He was slowly getting back to being himself. "Are there any fresh books?" "Yes, there's a brand new dinosaur encyclopedia." And I picked up a book from the shelf. "Here's another one." The cover had the title, Stories for Healing Hearts. It was a picture book created by a child psychologist. After what happened, many experts started putting out books about children's emotional well-being. I was involved as a supervisor in those projects. "I'd like to show this one to our teacher," Michael said. "Their teacher understands their history. She doesn't go out of her way to treat them differently, but provides a little support when they need it." "Oh, Dad is here," Kyson said, pointing toward the window. Tim was pulling into a parking spot. He now volunteers on weekends with an NPO dedicated to preventing child trafficking. "Michael, your parents are here as well." The Browns' vehicle had just pulled up. The two sets of parents had decided every Friday would be family day. Picnics in the park, movie nights, ordinary family joy. "Grandma, are you going to join us?" "Yes, I'll be along soon." I took out some papers. They were photocopies of Amy's court transcripts. Her punishment had been decided. It was life behind bars. They're still looking into the places that missed her wrongdoing and the individuals who aided her in lying. Mike Wilson is currently assisting with investigations into similar situations throughout the nation. His efforts have played a role in establishing new laws like the Ghost Children Prevention Act. The procedures for adoption checks are more rigorous, and the rules for reporting deaths have been updated. My phone buzzes. It's a prompt for a counseling appointment. Even though I only have them monthly now, I still have sessions with the two boys. The damage doesn't just vanish. Thankfully, they have support. Family members, friends, and experts. Janet shouted, "Mary, have you considered launching a fresh book club?" It would be for kids struggling with traumatic experiences. Her proposal really touched me. What I've discovered over this past year is that building relationships with others is the strongest way to mend broken spirits. Outside, cherry blossoms were swaying, and I could hear children laughing. I'm all set, so I grabbed my bag. Time to go. The fresh air of the coming season brushed gently against my face.